really affect the dead zone and in the Gulf.
I know.
We need the EPA to come in here and take a look at what they're
Well,
doing.
the current EPA is a joke. But
Yeah.
But they don't even come in because they keep it under the level.
What would you like to do tonight?
I would just like to introduce myself to you.
Okay.
And then I'm going to share with you some of the things I hear as I travel around the state. And if we have a little time, we'll sit around and do a little more conversation. But really the best thing I get out of these things, at least right now in the campaign, is really to just hear from you. Not here to tell you, right or wrong and that I have answers, but it's my first time meeting, and so definitely want to soak up what your priorities are, and you two started to share some, so thank you. And then I'll take this with me too.
yeah, that's so I don't end up talking so much. Just whenever you get a chance.
No, Sandy, thank you. That's great. That's wonderful. So I'm Theresa Greenfield, and as you know, I'm running for the United States Senate here against incumbent Joni Ernst, and I really am thrilled to be in this race. This is a seat we absolutely can win. I don't know if you've been paying attention to any of the news, but right now it's actually one of the top 5 GOP seats likely to flip in 2020. Senator Ernst is vulnerable, and you might all have your own ideas as to why that is. We're delighted. Her approval rating recently dropped to 39%. It dropped, I believe, about 13 points amongst Republicans. And so even Republicans are not terribly happy with her at this point in time. And so to me that means there's a wonderful opportunity for us to continue to meet people, meet them where they're at, listen to them, much like I'm doing tonight with you. We were working our way all around the state in getting that chance to just get out and hear what's on people's minds. So thanks for letting me tell you a little bit about me. I am a businesswoman. I'm a mother of 4, and I'm a farm kid. I grew up outside of a little farm called Bryceland, Minnesota. It's a town of 500, and it's right on the Minnesota-Iowa border. And it was, honestly, I think, kind of an idyllic little childhood. My parents were busy parents. They raised 5 kids. They had row crops, they had hogs, and my dad was a crop duster. Now, my mom was also a pilot, but she wasn't a crop duster, so I kind of grew up in this family of small pilots, and that was fun. We would do, what were they called? Like a pancake fly-in breakfast sometimes, and they had games and things. They're like little airports when I was a kid. I loved it. And the farm is where I learned to work hard. I think, as all farm kids did. And I like to tell people we also learned to play hard. We had a tire swing in the barn. We had motorcycles. Dad threw skeet on Sundays. It was just a wonderful place to work. But my dad and mom were pretty adamant about chores. There was a lot of them to be done, and they had a saying, and my dad did in particular, was there's no boy jobs and there's no girl jobs. There's just jobs that need to get done. He would say it in sort of that farmer tone, though, much more, not quite as nice, because there was. And so I will tell you my favorite job was working on the crop dusting business, and my least favorite was shoveling the brown smelly stuff in the hog barns. That was not always what I liked to do, but I'm not sure anybody likes to do that. I graduated in high school in 1982. I had a class of 24, and that was the start of the farm crisis, and interest rates were 21%, and as so many of you know, farm families definitely struggled during that farm crisis, kind of the beginning of it. And my family was really no different. My parents, they had to sell their crop dusting business, and they had to sell their hogs, and they never farmed again. And all 5 of us kids left the rural area. None of us were able to stay there and farm and start a business. We all live I don't think any of us live in Minnesota right now. I think we've all had to move on. So I just had to think, where is everybody? And it's been hard, because after that, schools closed, and then grocery stores closed, and the vets retire and nobody comes in, and the meat market closes, and all the little businesses that were in these small towns really have closed up. Today in my little small town, Bud's Cafe is there, and you can get a pancake in the morning, which is, by the way, they've been voted the best pancakes in Minnesota. So if you want to get up to the border, just right over from Buffalo Center, go there and get a pancake. They're very good. I'm sure Bud, Tom would appreciate the business for sure. And I'll tell you, our farm families are struggling again today. If you aren't involved in farming, maybe you haven't heard, but net farm income is down 75% in Iowa since 2013. So every year that Joni Ernst has been in office, the farm income now has dropped 75% in total. And I'll tell you, as I travel around the state, folks are worried about reckless trade, reckless tariffs. They're worried about the ethanol policies. We've had 85 waivers that have really damaged the ethanol production in this state. And so folks are talking about that. They're worried about jobs. They're worried about their small towns. And of course, we've seen job loss already. We've seen downgrading of earnings from folks like John Deere. And they're worried, and they should be worried. They absolutely should be worried. I think Iowa State estimates that between trade and tariff, there'll be about a $2 billion negative impact to the Iowa economy. And so I absolutely would love to see an end to those and get our farmers back on the right track and get those markets opened up for them. So, as I always tell people when I'm out and about, Joni Ernst is no friend to our farmers. And it took until about the 85th waiver for her to finally start really speaking up strongly on behalf of our farmers. And she voted for both EPA directors who have promoted these waivers. And that's unfortunate. She has not always put Iowa first. So my roots, really are in rural America. My resolve and my grit, that's where I grew up, that's how I grew up. And I'm also in the race for personal reasons, and I'll tell you, I think you have to have a lot of passion to run. I certainly do, and I'm absolutely a feisty farm girl for sure. But a lot of that comes from me from being widowed at the age of 24. My first husband was a lineman for the power company. He was a member of the IBEW, and he was a union member, and we were a union family, and that meant we benefited, like so much of the middle class has benefited from the work of the unions. He made great wages. We were saving for a dignified retirement, health care. We were saving for a home. We had welcomed home our first son. Really, in my opinion, on the way to our American dream. It was wonderful. And all that changed on a June morning because while I helped Rod get ready for work and pack his lunch, and I put a Snicker bar in there because he absolutely loves Snicker bars, I will tell you, about 3, 4 in the afternoon, the priest knocked at my door. And when you're 25, hello, you can come sit up here with us. Yeah, come on up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. When the priest knocks on your door, you just don't have any idea why. And I certainly didn't know why. And I had learned that Rod had died at work that day. And I became a young widow with one child and another one on the way. And that night, I remember the union leaders coming to my home and telling me about Social Security and about union benefits and about workers' compensation. And I realized the boys and I wouldn't go to poverty. But I'll tell you, without Social Security, we could have. We really could have. And my struggle, and part of the reason I'm hot under the collar, is because Senator Joni Ernst talks about privatizing Social Security and cutting Medicare. And these are benefits we've paid into, we rely on. And I think it's important Iowans understand where she stands on that, and that I'm going to be working hard on your behalf to sustain Social Security for generations to come. I like to say for young widows like me or grannies all over this state. It's a bedrock of how we take care of one another and the investment we've made as on our payroll taxes. So that really drives me to run too. And so I want you to know these stories about me. I think they're important. They let you know who I am and where my resolve is, I guess. Also, I want you to know that the reasons I tell these stories is because I'm not going to forget these kinds of stories when I serve you in Washington, D.C. I think it's really important we have leaders who remember their roots and want to stand up and fight for their roots. So after Rod died, I was able to go back to college, and I studied community planning and urban and regional planning, and eventually got my first job as a single mom with those 2 kids. Wasn't making very much money, but I was thrilled because I also got my dignity back. And I think in America, people want the dignity of providing for their families and knowing that that first job will lead to the next job and the next job and the next job. And I hoped that they would, and they did. I worked for many years in community planning and met with neighborhood groups just like you and stakeholders, oftentimes folks who had disagreements, but sitting down at the table together to talk about how we move our communities forward. whether it was a trail plan or a transportation plan or a land use plan. Always good to be listening first. So we did a lot of that. Today, I have worked most of my career since then in real estate, most recently commercial real estate. I've remarried. My husband, Steve, and I, we have 4 kids. Their ages are 33 to 26, and I'm pretty excited that they're all off on their own. I just love them. Of course, mostly I love them because they're not living with me, I got to tell you. It's really nice to be an empty nester, for sure. Our little guy, Dane, he serves the United States Army. He just re-enlisted for another 6 years. I am grateful to him, and just want to give a shout out to any of you, all of you here, if you've had friends and family, if you've served, thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you. And it's really important that we remember those folks and the sacrifices they and their families make, by the way. Families make a huge sacrifice. So that's a little bit about me. I want to let you know what I hear as I travel around the state and what your neighbors are talking about as we move from different counties and different meetings, just like this. People are concerned about health care, and it costs too much, and they want prescription drug pricing to come down. They don't understand why Senator Ernst voted to end the ACA rather than to improve, and they want that to happen. They're talking about education. You know, Iowa has a long, proud history of education, and they want that reinvestment into education, and the conversations oftentimes are from cradle throughout the career. And so I'm pleased that Iowans are still proud of their education, not that they wouldn't be, but want to make sure that we're listening and know that they want those investments. They're concerned about the expense of college, and that kids are coming out with way too much debt. They want it to be affordable again, and that requires investment on our leaders' part for sure. I went off to community college right out of high school, Iowa Lakes Community College up in Esterville. Rod and I lived in Buffalo Center for a while. And you know, I was a scrappy farm girl. I got a job at Pizza Hut, and I made enough money. I liked being a waitress, by the way. I loved it. I worked at Country Kitchen during high school. But I made enough money to, you know, pay my rent and my tuition and my books and get a beer on Friday night. And between, I don't remember if there was Pell Grants or not, but I ended that year without debt. And I think kids want to have some skin in the game. They want to work hard, but they don't want to finish up with so much debt that they can't start a business or buy a home or start their families. And so they want us to talk about that affordability. Next, I hear about the economy in Iowa. And folks are concerned, particularly in the rural areas where they're feeling these impacts of the decline in cash flow for our farmers, for the losses related to the ethanol industry. I know the company I worked for, we had a 15,000 square foot tenant that closed that was worked in that ethanol industry. And so there was jobs lost there. People are talking about big money in politics. And I've taken a pledge not to accept any corporate PAC donations. And I'm thrilled with that. It's working out just fine. As a matter of fact, last quarter we outraised Senator Joni Ernst. And it was individuals here and around the country who chipped in to help out, and we're thrilled with that kind of support. And finally, the last thing I hear more and more about is what I call climate action. And generally, most places I come, much like some of your comments about the overall health of our planet, some people are very sophisticated about the science, and they talk about a man-made global climate crisis and the action they want to see taken. Some people just are really concerned and talk about rains that come, 3-inch rains that come every other day or however long period of time. They're worried about the farmland and the runoff, and they want to talk about ways we can do it. They're worried about the flooding in southeast and southwest Iowa that we've seen, and how that's affected not only our farmland but our infrastructure, whether it's the lock and dams in the Mississippi or highways that have had to be closed down and entire towns negatively impacted. So they want to talk a bit more about that and how we can take steps as a country to move forward there. So those are really the key things that I hear from so many of your friends and neighbors. I always learn something when I'm out and about, so happy to learn from you all tonight too. But here's my promise to you. I'm not going to forget where I'm from, who I am, why I'm here, and who I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting to put Iowa first and to put you first. So I'm thrilled to be on the ballot, and I'm excited about the reception we've been getting all over the state. And does everybody know you?
Oh, hi guys, I'm Caitlin. I'm a field organizer with the Klobuchar campaign.
Okay,
out
good.
here. Yes.
Good. And I don't know if we've had a chance to meet. I think we have.
Maybe
maybe not.
met at Urbandale.
Maybe
area
that's it.
times before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for all your hard work.
Absolutely. There's organizers, if you aren't aware, there's I'm going to guess, over 500 organizers around the state, meeting in every county, every precinct, everywhere, really doing a lot of party building. And I'm grateful for you and for all the other organizers' hard work. So thanks for coming up tonight to meet the folks from Grimes.
Of course. Thank you
Yeah.
guys for having me.
Yeah. What are you hearing in your communities? And thank you for this. I'll take this with me.
Theresa, hi. Where are you at? Because I still am a Better Work supporter, so obviously, gun control is a big issue for me. We have Moms Demand Action that have proposed a number of changes.
Yeah.
And then March for Our Lives have proposed, even more progressive changes. We have a number of bills that are sitting in the Senate that they won't even allow a vote on. If we're not able to flip the Senate, but you're able to flip Senator Ernst's seat, how do you think you'll be able to hopefully get some progress in actually getting at least a vote on those bills that have been sitting stagnant for so long?
Well, first off, Senator Ernst should be doing her job. She should be demanding every day that Mitch McConnell bring over bills from the House and allow them to have debate up and debate down. Divisiveness in Washington is something I hear an awful lot about, and people want it to end. They want that conversation. They want to get back to doing the work for the American people. Infrastructure is a great example. We're 50th in the nation in bridge suitability, and bridges that need to be repaired aren't Republican or Democrat. Iowans want investments, and they want maintenance, and they want those things done. So I think that's where it starts, is by being the senator that wants to work in a bipartisan fashion and that wants to demand that we take action on the bills as they come over from the House, rather than letting them pile up, rather than joining party leadership and voting 99% of the time with Mitch McConnell and party leaders, but putting Iowa first. Now, I grew up on a farm, and of course, on our farm, as I mentioned to you, Dad threw skeet, oftentimes on Sunday afternoons. It was important to us to fill our freezer in the fall, and we often did that with deer hunting. It was important to protect our livestock, and so guns were an important part of our culture and our community, and we're responsible gun owners. And I tell you what, I think Iowa is a state of responsible gun owners. But we know through polling that so many Iowans do want sensible policies. They want to talk about and have some action on how we keep guns out of the hands of folks who can hurt themselves and hurt others. And I believe that bipartisan bill that the House has passed absolutely could be a step towards that. And our friends at Mom Demand Action, for example, want to see that action taken. And I would encourage Senator Ernst to get on board, take those first steps. In addition to that, I think a next really good step would also then be to invest and allow the CDC to do research. If we had anything else in this country where 40,000 people a year died from, as they do from gun violence, we'd be doing research to figure that out and learn more and try to understand how we can curb that. And I'd love to see Senator Ernst being a leader on that and demand the kind of action I think that we need to take. So thank you for the comments.
I do have an opinion on sensible gun control. I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
I have to admit that, firing assault weapons, they're a lot of fun. Come on, you gotta see that. They're a lot of fun to shoot. Got to do machine guns, got to do the M16, throw practice grenades. It's a lot of fun when you're in the military. But you're in the military and you're training with professionals. They just don't put you on a range with a gun and say, here, knock yourself out. You spend a lot of time cleaning and taking apart and learning and doing training before you ever step 1 foot on the range. And then you have safety rules to follow. So as a veteran, I think they're fun, but I don't personally, as a responsible gun owner, and I do have guns, I don't need to have an assault rifle. I think too often with, and I'm not gonna say video games, because I love video games too, first person shooters, they're a lot of fun. But I think in our culture, we've kind of veered off a little bit, where guns used to be a tool to protect your livestock. They used to be a tool to put food on the table. And it used to be something that you worked with, and now they've become basically toys for the culture. They're not really used as tools anymore. And I think in that shift, we've kind of moved away from our identity as Americans and patriots by looking at guns as toys. They're not toys. They do kill, and for that reason, I don't think we need assault weapons in everyone's hands.
Thank you for sharing that,
And
absolutely.
I don't like the idea of having them for hunting. I mean, well, the poor animal doesn't have a chance. I mean, you're gonna blow it in pieces, you know, what?
But
I just,
they're
God,
not,
it
they're
just-
not, they're to kill things, but they are not meant for hunting. If
Yeah,
you wanna
that's
hunt an animal, you're gonna one shot, one kill. You're gonna
Right.
wanna do it, you're never gonna fire on semi-automatic and put a 3-round burst into a deer, because it's not very accurate. So it's just really a waste of time and energy.
That's what I hear, that I like, people say that they use them for hunting, and it just like,
So thank
I
you,
don't get
yeah.
it.
Yes. What else are you guys hearing in your neighborhoods?
Student debt is a big issue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Do you have
the-
grandchildren that have student debt or
No,
children?
no, I don't have children. You know, another thing that is a big concern is on November 5th, over 11,000 scientists signed a statement declaring the climate a catastrophe, and they outlined 6 areas that need to be addressed. And, you know, we need to start doing something about that, you know, 10 years ago, but if not 10 years ago, well then now.
Sure.
You know, we don't have another planet to go to, this is the one that we've got, and
Great.
we absolutely need to do some things to reverse the effects of climate change.
And you know, Senator Ernst doesn't believe in the climate science. She's gone on record with that.
Well, you know, over 11,000 scientists from 153
Yeah.
countries agree that this is a catastrophe.
And your neighbors and friends around the state talk about it. They really do. They bring it up in every county we've been at. I was up in Floyd County and met with a farmer who is experimenting with some cover crops, some new ways of applying them, all because they want to protect their asset, and they recognize the runoff issues and the climate impact, positive climate impact it could have if they're able to make that successful for them. So it's nice to see folks out there, I'm sorry I have an itchy nose tonight, who are, you know, working hard like you. Most of my career I worked in some type of community planning, and I'll tell you, you know, there's so much we can do at the local level, the state level, the federal level, and globally, and so keep talking about it. And I'll just take heart that folks are interested, and so many of our presidential candidates, absolutely, it's a priority. So good. How much time do we have left?
Not too much.
I know we have to go.
What do you think about, it's proliferating throughout the country, medical marijuana? Right now, they have it on a different class schedule. I'm not real familiar with all the schedules. And which means it's very hard to do research, for the CDC to do research on whether or not this is a viable medicine. I know a lot of lobbyists for the pharmaceuticals are against the legalization of medical marijuana, even though it's shown improvements in, I have a nephew that has really bad epilepsy, to the point where.
Has he found some relief?
He did, well, they had to move because they couldn't get it, and he did find a little bit of relief, but
Good.
his epilepsy is so bad, he's had to have brain surgery, because it was basically
Yeah.
atrophy of his brain
Yeah.
from all the seizures. We're talking 20, 30 a minute at some point. So the question is, and with veterans and PTSD, so these lobbyists
Yeah.
are basically lobbying against it because they're busy trying to develop synthetic marijuana so they can go ahead and then sell you a prescription for something that you could probably get locally as opposed to getting it from somewhere else.
Yeah, well, clearly people are talking around the country on this, and states are taking action. Some of them are legalizing. Of course, that has its own challenges for sure. I am really pleased to see the direction that Iowa's taken to begin to look at medical marijuana. Certainly would like to see them move further along that line, and absolutely would be supporting finding a way to do the research. So we have maybe more clear answers about the benefits, or maybe not benefits, of medical marijuana. I've talked to a lot of people who really feel that it helps them, and that's great. So hopefully with some new leadership, we'll be able to find a way forward in that.
It'd be great.
Yeah, it would be. All right, you guys, I'm sorry, I do have to get to my next event. But please keep us posted when you have more events out here. If you have fundraisers or potlucks, we're always happy to at least know about them and stop by when we can. I wish there was 98 more of me. Because I would be out every night in every county if I could. But I'll tell you a secret. I do have an identical twin sister. And so if you bump into me someplace and I don't say hello, it's probably her.
Now, do you really have one, or are you just making
No,
this
no,
up?
I really have
Oh,
it.
okay.
I went and hugged her at the steak fry
No,
without
no.
saying hello.
I
and
would
then-
never.
That was awesome.